Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined by an under-the-weather Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Yes, I have to apologise to the listeners for A, sounding like I'm talking through my tombstone, and B, just in case I do die during the podcast, I will try to battle through gamely, and I'm just finishing off my will here. I bequeath unto Dave Hendrick 2 large foam Liverpool hands.
If Karl does die during the podcast from his man flu, Guy will just jump in and we'll continue as normal. Karl, Liverpool are top of the league again. Liverpool 3, Sheffield United 1 in the Premier League. A Darwin Núñez chase down block opens the scoring. Sheffield United equalised through a fluke. Alexis McAllister with an absolute thunder bastard of a goal. And then a great header by Cody Gakpo from an Andy Robertson cross to wrap things up.
Yes. I don't know what to take from the game other than obviously the last 20 minutes or so we did see that we do possess quality, which in the first 70 minutes or so we did not see very much evidence of. It was okay at times. It was just way too slow. Like, everything was so slow. There was very little jeopardy in the game for too long. Sheffield United were rubbish, and we just obviously didn't feel like we had to step things up. I'm kind of glad we got the reminder from them that we do indeed need to step things up, and we do indeed need to be in, at the very least, second or third gear, not the half reverse that we were in for a lot of that match. The cross from Andy Robertson for the last goal, I think, is almost as good as the strike from McAllister for the second goal. It was an unbelievable ball in. So perfect, like inch perfect, accurate, good height on it. I don't think Gakpo even needed to jump. Like, it was just literally where he was running onto. Really good header as well. But wow, that cross was something else.
Nice early cross as well.
Yeah, and on the run and sort of heading slightly right towards the touchline. Just very, very good. Very old Andy Robbo. We'd like a bit more of that.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I should remind the listeners that this podcast is me and Karl Matchett. So this podcast is going to go over the 50-minute mark. And even if Karl dies, Guy will jump in and we'll go over the 50-minute mark. So on the half-hour mark, this podcast is going to cut off if you're listening on the free side. If you want access to the full podcast and all of the podcasts on Anfield Index and Anfield Index Pro, without ads, without any breaks, without any of that, sign up to Anfield Index Pro. It's $4.99 a month. It's $39.99 for the year. So you do save money by doing the annual subscription. And you get Karl Matchett sick, which is very rare. You get other podcasts like Under Pressure, Minefield, Mulby on the Spot, Media Matters, Post-Match Raw, which is always going to be an hour and a half, it seems. And you help keep the lights on. So please do consider signing up. And if not, well, enjoy the half hour that you get. Karl, in the first half, you mentioned how slow it was. It was also very congested. It was also far too much of inverting both fullbacks at the same time. And while that allowed us a lot of possession and allowed us to just pass around their forward player, singular, and midfield players, it didn't allow us to open up their defence. But when we made the substitutions, especially when we made the second lot of substitutions, we went to a 4-4-2 and we kept both fullbacks wide, Conor Bradley on the right, Robbo on the left, with Harvey wide right and Diaz wide left. We were able to really stretch them out and find some good avenues that way. And I really don't understand why we weren't doing that earlier, because we had some early joy with Conor Bradley holding that width and attacking the Alston Trusty, who was playing left wing back for some reason. We were getting some joy that way. And then we just started doing far too much of the inverting the fullback and nonsense and doing it with both sides.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of interior diagonal runs last night. I think every time Virgil got the ball, 4 players made the same run. Like Gravenberch and Bradley twice almost ran into each other because they started darting infield straight away, looking for the big diagonal switch. Like I say, Gomez coming inside, we don't mind, obviously. That's part of the build-up plan now, but you do need to hold width. And I think Diaz was probably the only one who was doing so last night at times. Salah late in the first half did start to do that as well, but in really deep areas.
Yeah, and you don't want Mo doing that. You want Mo being more central.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, if he's going to be wide, then fine, but touchline right high on the last shoulder is absolutely where that's fine for him to get a bit of space over there, and then he drags everyone across. But he was behind the 8, he was behind the fullback. He was really, really deep last night. So, yeah, not great, to be honest, in first half. I don't think Klopp would have been very happy with much of anything in the first half, to be perfectly honest. You could see him for most of the evening having a go at one person or another because, like I say, it was very slow. The movement was not good. I think maybe Diaz, McAllister and Darwin can maybe be exempt from that because there was definitely effort in movement from them. Like even Darwin and Diaz maybe didn't get the fortune or the bounces at times, apart from one of them. But they were always running. They were always movement and looking to make a space or drag a defender or whatever it was. So I kind of leave them aside from it. But the passing was so slow, it didn't make any difference. You could have had the best movement on the planet last night and it still take 16 passes sideways across 25 seconds. A defence reorganises itself.
Yeah. Look, we had seen that midfield play before and it didn't work. And again, yesterday, it just didn't work. The Gravenberch-Szoboszlai pairing in midfield is just not something that is going to do it for us. It one or the other, with McAllister or Jones as the other 8, that has been the proven formula this season. And hopefully Jurgen doesn't try it again because we don't have a game against as weak an opponent for the remainder of the season. We also, I thought, lost quite a lot in terms of our final third play by McAllister being at the 6. And as I was watching, all I could think was I'd be very much in favour of getting Robbo or Costas on, getting Gravenberch off, putting Alexis back into a number 8 position and just moving Joe Gomez into the number 6 position, having a left back that holds width, just letting Joe sit in front of the centre-backs and getting Alexis just that 5 to 10 yards further forward where he can really influence things in and around the edge of the penalty area.
Yeah, look, I mean, Alexis McAllister is one of the most informed players in the Premier League right now. It would be really, really good if we could have Szoboszlai in the form of his early season and McAllister in the form that he's in now at the same time. And I'm not really sure how many teams would be able to stop that, to be honest. I think from a season-long perspective, obviously, it's always useful to have different players in different form at different times, and that's fine. But, we want to see everyone in good form, obviously, at the same time, but especially those two. It would be really quite something to see them both try and influence the game as much as they're able to.
Yeah, because they're both outstanding players, and Dom obviously he's playing okay. He has not been bad, but he's certainly not at the level he was at early in the season when he was playing outrageous football. I think he's played a lot and obviously had multiple injuries, but I still think he's got a lot to offer this team between now and the end of the season. So I think it's worth sticking with him in that number 8 position, or potentially even looking at him maybe as an option off the left wing in certain games, because one big deal from last night, other than Robbo coming back, it was only a short-term injury, was the return of Curtis Jones, who's been out since the Brentford game. And he was obviously playing the best football of his career before he got hurt. He came on last night and made a huge difference.
Yeah, he was brilliant when he came on. I have to say, I think all of the subs did make an impact in their different ways. But I think sometimes maybe the more technical players, you can see them come back after 2 months, 3 months, 4 months out, and they need a few games to get that touch and rhythm back. But Jones, basically, the first time he got the ball, rolled someone out of the way. Then there was a little pirouette away from another one. There was some quick feet on the edge of the box. He just looked really, really good, really sharp again. I think he'll be huge across the last 8 games plus whatever we've got in Europe. So we cannot play just the same 3 on rotation in midfield, or not on rotation as that would be. So it is important to at least have a 4th, if not a 5th. Harvey Elliott, obviously, you would probably include in that rotational group at times, even if it's an in-game sub that he goes into midfield. Again, I thought he brought loads of good energy, 2 or 3 really good crosses from the right-hand side. Robbo, we've already mentioned. I just think that it was well used and well timed, the substitutions.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you mentioned Harvey. I thought he was really busy when he came on and looking to make things happen. Like you said, a couple of gorgeous crosses. One of them gave Andy Robertson an unbelievably good chance that he just needs to go across the goal. Just go across the goal, Andy, because he ran onto it and it's a controlled volley. He has purposely gone near post with that. If he goes across the goal, I think he scores, or at least forces the keeper to make a save, and maybe someone follows up and gets a rebound. And Cody Gakpo comes on after a really poor sub-appearance against Brighton. He came on last night. He looked far more purposeful. He looked far more like he knew what his role was meant to be. I think the 4-4-2 really suited him, because him and Darwin were able to play kind of both roles, either up as the 9 or as the 9.5. He also drifted wide to the left, which allowed Luis Diaz to come in field. And that rotation between the 3 of them seemed to be working quite well. And he gets his goal. And it's a really, really good goal. Like, it's a great cross from Robbo, like you said, but it's a tremendously well-controlled header, because he's 17 yards out and he's just redirecting the power on Robbo's cross, but he does it perfectly into the bottom, into the corner of the net. It's a great, great header. And hopefully that will spark something with him now. You could see how happy his teammates were for him. And he's faced a lot of criticism of late, and it's been deserved criticism. And I know a lot of people were having a go at Jamie Carragher last night for a tweet from a couple of weeks ago about how he plays in slow motion. The tweet was accurate. He did play like he was in slow motion that day. And when it's not working for him, or when he's not in the mood or whatever, he does slow things down really, really badly. But last night, he was aggressive in everything he was doing. He was getting the ball. He was taking people on. He was trying to make things happen. He was playing quick. And he fully deserved his goal. So hopefully now with Cody, this will spark a little run of form, because he's got to be looking over his shoulder as well. Right now, he's the 4th forward. But as you mentioned on the last podcast, when Diogo Jota comes back, in all likelihood, Cody becomes the 5th forward. And we need him for every minute he's on the pitch to be trying to prove to Jurgen, not just that I should be ahead of Jota, but I should be ahead of Diaz and or Darwin as well. Like, that's what he needs to take into each of these games, is a mindset where he's going out to prove to the manager, I'm better than the 5th choice forward. I should be starting here.
Yeah, I mean, Jota coming back is actually the perfect example for Gakpo, to be honest. Different reasons, obviously, for the two of them, but Jota last season and before last season was awful. Absolutely stinking the place out, could not turn, could not control a boulder. Awful. Like, I was absolutely up for selling him. He was slow. He didn't have the acceleration in his game. Trying to take people on was painful to watch. And obviously, he didn't really have the finish in his game either. He didn't have rhythm or anything because he'd been out for so long. That calf injury he got against Man City was a really bad one, obviously, in terms of like explosive movements and that. But this year, he came back and he was magnificent. Like, no other way to put it. Absolutely sensational for 2-3 months, something like that. So to be able to recapture that kind of form, to be able to recapture a starting place in the team, because that's what he had until he got injured again, is what Gakpo has to aim for. He's got to be able to look at that and see other people don't get in this team straight away, but work hard enough to do it and find their form and get back to their best and win a spot again. And he's got to be able to do that. He's got to have that mindset as much as the quality we already know. We've seen the technical quality when he's playing in the Eredivisie, in the World Cup, wherever you want, even in flashes at Liverpool. But the mentality, the aggression, the determination to do it every single time you're on the pitch, we don't see that with Gakpo, and that's what's so annoying about it.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AEyeVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, it's like... It's the same thing with Gravenberch, where you look at him and you see incredible physical attributes, like 6'4", well-built. He's got incredible technical ability. Like, he's got a wonderful first touch. He's a good dribbler. He's obviously a very good striker of the ball. He's an intelligent player. And you just wondered why it is that he and Gravenberch can't put it all together. And sometimes you watch them play and you think, do they know that they're this big? Like, Cody at times plays like he's 5'7". And there's good in that it allows some lovely little one-touch play. He's got, like I said, great technical ability. There's a softness to his touch. He puts lovely weight on his through passes. He reminds me, I said when we signed him, the player he reminded me of was a poor man's Marcus Rashford in some ways, but Shinji Kagawa in others, in just that subtlety to his game. But there's times when we need him to play his size, and he just doesn't do it. And I thought last night he did it really, really well. Like, the moment where him and Diaz sort of bundled the ball through and Ahmed Hodzic has to come across and the ball ends up skewing up in the air and it looked like it should have been a corner but was given as a goal kick. Cody does really well there in using his size to hold off a defender and just head the ball back into Diaz's path. And we need much more of that. We need him playing like a guy who's 6'4" when the moment calls for it. And like the thing with him is as well, he's clearly incredibly popular among his teammates because Mo was full of praise before the game. And both Alexis and Jurgen were full of praise after the game. So very clearly the teammates want to help boost his confidence. The manager wants to do it as well. They wouldn't be doing that if he wasn't really popular among the group. So he needs to know that he's got the backing of his teammates because they've shown it publicly. And he needs to go, we've got a maximum of 13 games left this season, a minimum of 10. We need him playing at his best level across those games because he can add a lot to this team when he's in the right headspace.
For sure. Look, we need the entirety of the squad. We just said it's really important for Curtis Jones to come back. I don't think right at this moment in time, loads of people would be saying Curtis has got to go straight back into the lineup because Endo has to go straight back into the lineup because we want Alexis a little bit further forward. Like I just said, he's been playing out of this world and you want him in that spot, which is where Jones was basically. Jones has done nothing to be warranted out of the team, but it's a case of putting in the team the ones who's going to make the team as good as possible. And in the minute, that's Alexis in that spot. So simple as that. So Endo has to be the six. You know, you can play Curtis as the six. We've seen it before. But in the way that Endo has been playing, you obviously just put him in. So we need that fourth midfielder. We'll need a fourth and a fifth forward if we're going to go all the way in the 13 games and pick up 2 more trophies at the end of it. There's no question about that. So he, I think more than anybody else in the squad, has work to do here. Like Gravenberch is less so, I think, just because of other people in that position, other options, maybe even the fact that he, I don't know whether you want to call it him being younger or not. I know you're not a fan of that at this stage, but I still see Gravenberch as quite a lot more inexperienced as a player, to be perfectly honest. And
if Curtis Jones was playing the way Gravenberch is, people wouldn't be making the same excuses that they're making for Ryan Gravenberch. Curtis Jones has played 3,500 minutes less in his career than Ryan Gravenberch. He's played 45 games less in his career. He's much less experienced than Ryan Gravenberch. But people want to make excuses for Gravenberch.
Yeah, I'm not really keen on the excuses side either, but I just don't feel that it's as imperative for him to.
It's not, because he's the sixth midfielder.
Yeah.
As you said, Curtis is number 4 and Harvey is number 5. So it is less important that Gravenberch perform because, quite frankly, he shouldn't be playing a whole lot between now and the end of the season. He certainly shouldn't start another game unless we hammer Atalanta and we can afford to rotate for the second leg or do similar in the semi-final. He shouldn't be playing a whole lot for the remainder of the season. Off the bench, fine. Not with Szoboszlai in midfield. With Jones and McAllister. With Endo and McAllister. With Endo and Jones. Yeah, fine. No problem off the bench. But not with Szoboszlai again. Karl, this sets up a huge game now at the weekend against the old enemy Manchester United. A team that are incredibly hard to read. Hilarious they're absolutely hilarious. So last night, they go to Stamford Bridge. They go 2 down. They fight their way back. They play some decent football. Anthony, who has been an absolute embarrassment since they signed him, has a great assist for Garnacho for the go-ahead goal. They're 3-2 up, well into stoppage time, and they give up a soft penalty, and I'm still not sure it's a penalty. I think if it wasn't given by the referee, the VAR doesn't send them to the screen to review it. I think he just says, yeah, no, you haven't made a mistake there. I think it's one of those where it's not clear and obvious enough that there's been an error to overturn it, but I don't think it would have been given if the referee hadn't given it. Cole Palmer steps up and scores his second penalty of the night, and it's 3-3 in the 100th minute of the game. United decide that rather than just take the point, let's go attack, lose the ball, give away a corner, and then collectively decide, no, we'll play no more. Let's all just stand around and congratulate ourselves on getting a 3-3 draw at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea take a quick corner, and Cole Palmer picks the ball up, turns and shoots. It is flying directly into the arms of Andre Onana. And for some reason, Scott McTominay decides, I'm just going to lean into the ball here, and nudges it past his own goalkeeper. 4-3 to Chelsea. Manchester United's 12th loss in the Premier League this season from 30 games. Their 17th loss in all competitions from 42 games. They have a negative goal differential in the Premier League of -1. Across the entire season in all competitions, they have a positive goal differential of +2, which is entirely reliant on their +6 goal difference in the FA Cup, because they also had a minus differential in the Champions League and a 0 differential in the EFL Cup. They are dreadful. And just to highlight how dreadful they are, Karl, we are in April. Manchester United have played 14 games in all competitions this calendar year. Now, those games have been against, in the Premier League, Tottenham, Wolves, West Ham, Aston Villa, Luton, Fulham, Manchester City, Everton, Brentford, and Chelsea. So some good teams, some bad teams. They've also played in the FA Cup, Wigan, Newport, Nottingham Forest, and ourselves. One good team, one pretty poor team, and 2 lower league teams. 14 games, Karl. Would you like to hazard a guess at how many games they have allowed less than 15 shots?
3.
1. Wigan, the first game. They have conceded at least 15 shots in 13 consecutive games, including a game against mighty Newport County. In the Premier League, since the turn of the year. Now, we spoke on the last Scouted about how embarrassingly bad Sheffield United were defensively. Sheffield United have allowed 206 shots in the Premier League since the turn of the year. Manchester United, in 10 games, 225 shots they have allowed. They are averaging 22.5 shots allowed across the last 10 Premier League games. What are their midfield doing? How is it the teams are allowed to get so many shots away?
I mean, it is astonishing, let's be honest. You saw last night, right? We've been speaking about this exact thing for months with Man United, right? They are in a reasonable position in the game. Now, sometimes that could be ahead, sometimes that's just drawing away from home or whatever. But they do this thing where they see an opportunity to counterattack, and all of them counterattack. Like about 8 of them try to, but nobody is doing so in a column or in a channel where they normally would be, or is covering for somebody else who does it in a different. They just all go, and they did this last night at 3-3 and at 3-2. I don't get it. They've conceded so many chances and goals this way, where they just overextend, rushing forward, get the final pass wrong, and suddenly there's about 50 yards between the defensive line and all these other players who have rushed forward, and the other team just bloods forward. It's honestly, it's quite pathetic, right? I can't even think. How long has he been there now, Ten Hag?
Basically a year and 3 quarters.
Very nearly 2 years. To not be able to coach a team to the extent that they still don't know how they need to set up in the final instances of games when they're leading is just bizarre. Like Chelsea's goals were obviously extreme in the fact that they were so late and there was two of them, but they also did it against Brentford in the last match. Like even if you have you can make the odd mistake, the coaches, the players, where's the learning from any of this? It happens over and over again. They went ahead at Brentford after 95 minutes and still didn't win the game. They're ahead at Chelsea after 108 minutes and still don't win the game. And don't even take a point this time.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's bemusing to me how they can look really resilient in spells of matches, but just have no sense. They just have absolutely no conviction about what they're doing over a full entire match. There can be spells in games, like I say, where they're really well set up. They can be quite obstinate and they maybe don't look like immaculate at the other end of the pitch sometimes, but by and large, they can be stubborn to break down, defending their own area and that sort of thing. Yet then just have these 10-minute spells where nobody thinks about anything at all, and anything at all can happen at your other end. And there's so many individual errors in that team, it's unreal.
Yeah, the individual errors thing is so prevalent with them. Like, there is just something. Like, let's be fair. Against Brentford should have been 5 or 6-0 up before Mason Mount scores. Brentford, who are absolutely awful this season, had 31 shots in the game, 5 on target, but they also hit the woodwork 3 or 4 times. And of the 5 on target, they should have scored at least 2. They're just so... Like, they play a deep block and try and counterattack teams. And yet they still allow an incredible amount of shots. So, tactically, they're shit. In terms of executing the tactics, they're also shit. They're just such a funny team. There's no real logic in anything they do. And like, you look back at recent results, they beat us 4-3 in the cup. We should have wiped the floor with them. We gifted them that game. They played Everton in the game before that and they won 2-0 at home. Everton should have gotten at least a point. Everton were the better team on the day. Like, they're just, game after game, they're just dreadful. And yet they do fluke out enough results just to keep this fella in a job. But we're nearly 2 years into his era. He spent fortunes, and yet here we sit looking at them. And frankly, I'm stunned that they're as high as 6th. I think their expected points on the season would have them like 12th or 13th. And I actually think that would be more fitting for what they've been as a team. Because when you start looking at some of their results this year, like, they've gotten a lot of luck that's gone their way. I'm thinking in particular about the Wolves game at the start of the year where Wolves should have had a Stonewall penalty, the Nottingham Forest game where Forest were 2-0 up and chucked it away, the Brentford game where Brentford were 1-up in the 92nd minute and lost. Like, there's been so many moments this season where they've gotten lucky and very few where they've come away with a defeat and I've thought, you've been unlucky today. In fact, the only time I think I've watched them play this year where they've lost and I've thought you should have gotten you deserve something in that game was probably the Arsenal game, which was back in September, where Gabriel fouls Johnny Evans and Declan Rice scores and the goal is given. Now, Arsenal went on and scored again, but if they don't get the second, I don't think they get the third because United wouldn't have opened up. But aside from that, any game they've had that's ended with luck, you could maybe say that the low penalty on thing yesterday, maybe that shouldn't have been given. But I don't understand this team at all. Like, this fellow was brought in to bring a specific style of football to the club. That's why they picked him. They had Manchester United as a club had long yearned for a Guardiola. And this fellow was seen as, one of the Guardiola coaching three, having worked under him at Bayern, even though it was for, I think, a year, 2 years maybe, and it's quite a while ago. But he did play a Guardiola-esque style at Ajax. He binned that off after a game and a half in season number 1 and has never gone back to it. And when asked about it, says he doesn't have the players for it, despite the fact that he spent in excess of 400 million. He's brought in a lot of players that are his choices, and some of the players that he inherited, like, say, Raphael Varane, Marcus Rashford, I would add Bruno Fernandes to that, and I would say Sancho, who he also inherited, and Garnacho. They're all more than capable of playing the style of football he had at Ajax. So is Diogo Dalot, so is Luke Shaw. I don't really know which players it is that he has that aren't suited to playing out from the back, to controlling games. Maybe he doesn't have the players in midfield to do it because Casemiro's legs have gone, but he insisted on Casemiro. So I just don't understand this team at all. They're still playing the way they did under Ollie, except they're not as good as they were under Ollie, and they've spent all this money.
Yeah, I had a quick look there, and you're absolutely right. 13th is their expected points tally. That's where they would be if things happened as they would do on average, but not this year for Man United. They are 11 points and a little bit more better off than they would be according to chances during the games.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
Sports Social Podcast Network.